What's going on, everyone? I'm just a typical, average American here today to react to this video by TLDR News called Why the Union Looks a Bit Shaky, which seems to be alluding to the possibility that the United Kingdom could actually break up? Now, I don't know much about this, but that sounds like it would be a really, really big deal, right? Like, is that actually possible? Is this even a popular idea? I don't know. So today, I want to check out this video and learn more about this. So let's take a look.
With the May elections rapidly approaching, the union of the United Kingdom is looking less and less secure.
May elections? Oh my god. This is how you know that most of us Americans are really out of the loop. I didn't know that there were any elections coming up in the UK for who? For what? I don't know. But obviously that is going to determine like the political future of the UK for now at least. So I didn't even know that that was happening in only like 2 months, I guess.
In Scotland, the pro-independence SNP are on course for their 5th consecutive election victory. And in Wales, pro-independence Plaid Cymru could be on the verge of forming their first ever government.
Pro-independence? Both Scotland and Wales have pro-independence representatives or parties, by the sound of it, that are gaining popularity. I didn't know about any of this. Wow. Wow, because like I said at the beginning, I was my first reaction to even hearing about this was like, is this talked about? Is this popular? Because obviously here in the United States, we don't hear much about this kind of thing. And just based on this information alone, that there's like movements that are gaining big popularity, apparently, like in Wales and Scotland and perhaps other places, like that are pro-independence. I gotta be honest, I didn't realize that it was actually this serious.
Given that Sinn Féin, which seeks Irish reunification, has been the largest party in the Northern Ireland Assembly since 2022 and filled the role of First Minister since 2024, if the SNP and Plaid do win in May, then each of the UK's devolved nations will be led by a party that advocates for separation.
What? Whoa. Now, obviously as an American, I don't really even have a strong opinion on this because it's like, I guess my opinion would be that the will of the people of the UK should be expressed. So if the majority of people in the UK feel this way or want this to happen, that's what should happen. But yeah, I'm just a bit shocked, I gotta say, because I really didn't even know this had any chance of happening.
While Northern Ireland doesn't have an election due until 2027, it's the only country in the UK with a way out of the union enshrined in law. The 1998
What?
Good Friday Agreement states that the right of self-determination sits with the people of the island of Ireland alone, and the Northern Ireland Act of
Whoa.
1998 vests the power to call a border poll, also known as a referendum, in the UK Secretary of State for Northern Ireland.
No kidding. This is fascinating. So Northern Ireland actually has the most realistic pathway to independence. It's actually like written into this act from 1998.
Currently, Labour's Hilary Benn, with it being stipulated that they must call a border poll if it appears likely that a majority of people in Northern Ireland
Wow.
would vote to leave the UK and form a united Ireland.
Whoa.
That is,
A united Ireland? Wait, so now we're talking about, is that a thing? Where you got like Ireland and Northern Ireland, which are separate entities, those could unify? into a thing? Is that a thing? Am I understanding this correctly?
That is effectively a political judgment. Exactly what would inform their decision is left deliberately unclear. A combination of high polling for Irish reunification and high polling or strong electoral victories for Irish nationalist parties would presumably factor in. With this in mind, Irish nationalists have cause for optimism for a number of reasons. Demographic shifts mean that Catholics now outnumber Protestants for the first time in Northern Irish history,
Oh, wow.
as per the 2021 census. And the proportion of those identifying solely as Irish is rising, while sole British identification is falling.
Whoa. Really? That's very interesting. Identifying as like British, more of an encompassing term, that's falling, whereas specifically identifying with, like, for example, being Irish is right. I wonder how they measure that. Like, if they how they collect this data, because that's very insightful, but that's like a very, like, I don't know, like, deeply personal kind of expression. I wonder how they even, like, collect that information.
Additionally, from 2022 to 2024, Sinn Féin won a historic hat-trick for Irish nationalism, becoming Northern Ireland's largest party at Westminster, Stormont, the seat of the Northern Irish Assembly, and across local government.
Oh, wow.
Since 2020...
Okay, so another thing I've noticed is there's obviously political parties in several of the countries of the UK that are pro-independence. But they're just like the biggest political party, not necessarily the majority. So is this still like this separatist or independence sort of movement with all these different places? Is it kind of something that's growing in popularity, but it's still not like the majority of people necessarily align with this? Is that fair to say?
Since 2024, Sinn Féin's Michelle O'Neill has served as Northern Ireland's First Minister, a symbolic blow to British unionism, even though the role technically gives her no more authority than her deputy from the Democratic Unionist Party. However, Sinn Féin's electoral success is more to do with its consolidation of the nationalist vote. In fact, the combined nationalist vote share has hovered around 40% since 1998. And while support for Irish unity has grown modestly this century, it's still reliably behind in the polls. Meanwhile, the combined vote share of unionist parties, those that want to stay in the UK, has fallen from more than 50% to 40%.
Whoa, that's significant. Yeah, perhaps more than anything they've shown. That's wow. Support of people who want to stay in the union has gone from 60 to 40, majority to not. Whoa. I really didn't know that this was such a big thing. Like, I still don't know how realistic this is to actually happening, but, like, I don't know, maybe this just goes to show you, like, here in the United States, most of us Americans have absolutely no idea what's going on in politics in other parts of the world. And even though it's really, really important stuff, like, it's actually kind of bad, I think, that I didn't know this was happening at all.
At the same time, the rise of the non-sectarian Alliance Party in the centre suggests that an increasing proportion of people are not wedded to either unionist or nationalist ideologies.
Okay.
Sinn Féin's call for a referendum by 2030, therefore, looks more like a fantasy than reality. However, that does not mask the fact that unionism is not the dominant force it once was in Northern Ireland, and cannot presume the status quo will hold forever.
Wow. Wow. Is that true? Even if all of this doesn't happen now, does it feel like an inevitability that the union will break up? Well, so far we've been focusing a lot on Ireland, Northern Ireland, and I know they're going to talk about the other countries as well.
Unlike in Northern Ireland, though, across the Irish Sea in Scotland, voters will head to the polls on the 7th of May. For a brief moment, this election looked like it could end the SNP's dominance in Scotland and provide Labour's Anna Sarwar the keys to Bute House. After all, the SNP had not only been engaged in intra-party infighting over the direction of the party, but it had also been embroiled in a party finance investigation, and Labour had emerged victorious in Scotland in the 2024 UK general election.
Yeah, I'm like a little aware of like general British politics, the results of the last election, Keir Starmer, but this is actually fascinating to hear like the politics of the individual parts of the UK, like Scotland and Northern Ireland and England and Wales, and it's really stuff I never hear about.
Winning 37 of the 57 seats north of the border, leaving the SNP with just 9. Around that time, Scottish Parliament polls also showed Labour within touching distance of the SNP. However, as approval
Wow.
of Keir Starmer's government and the UK Labour Party's polling rapidly sunk, Scottish Labour began to fall in the polls too.
Oh
And
wow.
also, thanks to the canny leadership of John Swinney, the SNP managed to stabilise its position. As things stand, it looks likely that
Wow.
the SNP will win their 5th consecutive victory at Holyrood, with the Times reporting in January that they would be only 6 seats short of an overall majority.
Whoa. Okay. So this is a very popular party in Scotland. Um, it's actually really, really interesting.
Potentially governing as a minority or forming a majority coalition with the pro-independence Greens.
So they said that Scotland is that's where these elections coming up in May. It's we're talking about Scotland in particular.
But if they are able to secure an overall majority themselves, this would be only the second time in their history that they've done so. The first time they secured such a victory, in 2011, they were able to convince then Prime Minister David Cameron to hold an independence referendum. With this in mind, SNP delegates
Whoa.
agreed at their conference last year that, should they secure another overall majority this year, they'll claim it as a mandate for a second independence referendum.
Whoa. That to me, that's about as real as it gets, right? This isn't just symbolic or anything. This is real. Like they are really pushing for an independence referendum, like a vote for Scottish independence after the next election if things go this way. Oh my! And if it passes, that's it, right? Is it? How realistic is it that it passes? That would be huge. I mean, I'm trying to even comprehend like how significant that would be. It's like if a state here in the United States literally left and became their own independent nation, right? Although there's like 50 states and only like 4 countries in the UK, so it's quite a bit more significant for the UK, to be honest.
And lobby the British government to hold one. For context, the Supreme Court ruled in 2022 that a referendum can only happen with Westminster's approval. The UK Labour government
Okay.
has been clear that it would not accept this, with Chancellor Rachel Reeves stating, when there was a referendum just a few years ago, it was said that this was a once-in-a-generation referendum. People gave their verdict then, we don't need another one.
So there was a vote not that long ago in Scotland, and it failed. And now some people are saying like, "Oh, we don't need to hold another one so soon." I guess it just boils down to like again, what do the people want? This is all to represent the will and desires of the people of the UK and of Scotland and of all the different countries. And yeah, I guess it's just about what they want.
Nonetheless, First Minister John Swinney claims that he has a secret plan with tactics ready to deploy in the face of Starmer's opposition. Exactly what this plan is not yet known.
So it's kind of a conflict of interest almost in a way. Like, doesn't the general UK government want the union to be maintained just like from a consolidation of power point of view? From it's just like the UK is more of a powerful entity the more countries that are in the union. From even from that point of view, I'm sure that's not at all everything that goes into the decision making, but I can't help but think like the UK government doesn't want to see the UK like splitting up, except for these independence pro independence parties. Those parts of the government do want to see it. So who knows? Wow.
Down in Wales, plans for independence are not as developed as in Scotland. Welsh voters are also
Okay.
heading to the polls on May the 7th, and amid the polling
Oh.
collapse of long dominant Labour, which we explored in a video last year, Plaid Cymru, the party of Wales, is battling reform for first place in the Senedd.
Oh my God. Welsh politics. Wow. Talk about something I don't ever get to hear about. Scotland's having an election. Wales is having an election in like less than 2 months. Okay.
The Welsh Parliament, with neither likely to win a majority on their own. Given the positions of
Okay.
other parties, Plaid have an easier route to minority or coalition government than reform, and any Plaid-led government would be a historic first for Wales. However, unlike the SNP, Plaid are clear that they have no intention of seeking independence in the near term, with
Okay.
party leader Rhyn ap Iorwerth explicitly ruling out a push for an independence referendum in his first term.
Wait, but it says they are thinking about independence, just not this first term. Does that mean Wales is thinking about independence in the long term? What is? You could go so far into this. They're not even talking or discussing about why does Scotland and Northern Ireland and Wales, why do they want to leave the Union? Why do you want independence? What are you unhappy with? I wish they would actually talk a bit about that.
Given that support for Welsh independence rarely exceeds 40% in the polls, ap Iorwerth's
For I don't care who you are, 40%, that's a lot. It's not the majority, but if up to 40% of people in 2021, it looks like, in Wales were pro independence, that to me, not knowing anything about this prior, that's shocking. Like that's almost half of the people.
seems to understand that there's more groundwork to be done. Ultimately, if, after May, each corner of the UK is led by pro-independence or separatist parties, it will not mean the imminent end of the Union, as each of the respective movements have some way to go to achieve their goals.
So England isn't even mentioned. Is this not really a topic of discussion in England? Or I guess if all this happened, by default, England would be independent as well.
However, this is probably not much consolation to Unionists. Rather, it would highlight a clear crisis of confidence in the Union, something that governments in Westminster should take seriously if they want to secure the Union's long-term future.
Whoa.
As we mentioned earlier,
Yeah, okay. So that's it. I had no idea that this was a thing. Let alone such it from what I've taken away from this information, way more serious and dare I say likely than I ever anticipated. That doesn't mean that it's likely to happen now or even in the near future, but several of these countries are in the UK. You guys are inching up on 50% or majority pro independence. And that's basically that'd be the tipping point, right? And they were talking about all these pro independence political parties gaining power and popularity, and yeah, this is just stuff that we don't talk about or hear about here in the United States, and this is a huge deal. Am I misunderstanding? Because this sounds like a huge deal. It really does, that I really didn't know about. So I'm very glad I took a look at this today. Wow. Anyway, if you enjoyed this, feel free to give this video a like or leave a comment with your thoughts on the UK and the possibility of the Union breaking up and these independence movements, separation movements, especially if you're in the UK, in any of these countries. That'd be awesome to hear about. And if you're interested in more videos like this, feel free to subscribe for more. And until then, thanks for watching, and see you next time.